Wouldn't it be great if we could bring these companies to the region? Wouldn't it be great if we could support these, companies that are across the region and really start to build them up and invest in them when they're being not viewed? I don't want to use the word neglected, but they're not being seen by, Silicon Valley bankers or New York bankers. I mean, really from Houston to Dallas to Atlanta, I mean, there really is this gigantic void of capital. And so how can we bring this capital into these entrepreneurs? And we were able to do that. And it's been remarkable.
Welcome to the Seismic Shift podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Johnston. This podcast explores the seismic shifts that are shaking up the way that you work and the way that you live. As you can see, I'm in a different location today. I'm at the Saints training facility, super excited to interview one of my friends, one of the leaders who I admire, I get to work with on Loyola committees. I get to run the Leadership Academy for Dennis Lauscha. Dennis Lauscha is the president and CEO of the New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Pelicans, and all of Gayle Benson's companies. He's got a huge job. And welcome, Dennis Lauscha.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
This is really exciting. Thank you for taking the time. I mean,
absolutely.
Just saying your title and everything that you're in charge of, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, right? I don't like thinking about it too much.
Right? You just show up
show up and do it. Yeah.
Yes.
No.
So my first question to you is, what are the seismic shifts you're seeing in the NFL, in the NBA, in everything you do?
Oh man, there's a lot of seismic shifts, and there's not only the seismic shifts, there's a lot of rumbles and tumbles and everything else on the horizon. But the beauty of the business that I'm in is it's so competitive and it's always changing, and you're always trying to get that competitive edge. And at the same time, the beauty of both pro sports that I'm involved in, they're both really on the cutting edge of what's happening culturally in our country and internationally as well. So this ever-changing responsibility and role that I have is really a remarkable opportunity for me, and I enjoy it so much. On the seismic side, one of the big things that occurred to us over the last couple of years has been, and some of our fans would recognize this, has been the changes in the way we distribute our games, broadcast our games. For many, many years, particularly on the basketball side, we have been distributing our games through a regional broadcast partners. Well, unfortunately, about a year or two ago, many of those broadcast partners left the market. And so we had some decisions to make. And really, ever since the Pelicans, formerly the Hornets, came to New Orleans, we've always had a bit of a distribution issue, making sure all of our fans got to see the games. And there were a number of issues with cable companies and disputes and whatnot. But because of this seismic shift, these regional players really going away, we had to really redefine and reanalyze, our distribution. And the outcome of that has been really a total change in the way we are presenting our games, the way we are advertising our games, the way we are bringing those games to the public. And so it's been a really big change for us. I mean, we really are now in the broadcast business. You can look around and see this facility here and this stage, if you will. I mean, this is what we are. We're really are into the content business, not just with our games, obviously, but so many shows. We're actually work with Gray Television, and we have a new television channel, another cable television. We work with direct-to-consumer products like Pelicans Plus. All of those things we really now have a hand in. We have taken a much greater role in our radio broadcast, both for the Saints and Pelicans. And so it's been a big shift for us. And, there's a lot of other things going on, but that's one that really has changed. Now, the beauty of it is, the great thing about it is that so many people will be able to see our games. And really, when you look at Louisiana, Mississippi, big part of Alabama and the panhandle of Florida, you're talking about 7 million people, and so a lot of times we say we're a small market, but if we can reach those regions, then we're not so much a small market anymore. We're about the size of Chicago. So what we have to do is continue to grow that fan base in our region, continue to ramp up the avidity in that region, and and now broadcasting and distributing the way we are, that really helps us.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is a seismic shift that I was unprepared for. That's something I didn't even think about. I'm a huge, Saints fan. I'm a huge Pels fan. I call it the Pels. Can we call it the Pels?
Sure. Yeah.
Huge Pels fan. And when I think about, and I'm going to be at your game next week, when I think about connection, because as you well know, Dennis, my philosophy is if you're going to be successful, whether personally as a leader, organizationally, from a community mindset, from a fan outreach, like you're saying, it's not just New Orleans, it's the Gulf Coast, it's the Panhandle. It goes into Mobile, Alabama. And so if it's the size of Chicago, you have this, 7 million people, how do you connect with the fans? And I think that's the $1 million question, right?
It is
all about connection. How do you do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. That is, and doing it on a personal level. I mean, that is something we strive for every single day. Part of that is starting, for the folks that do attend our games, is the fan experience. Trying to make that fan experience as close as having a conversation with our fans as we possibly can. And I would tell you probably the number one thing that we do is listen. We do a lot of listening to our fans. We do a lot of surveying. One of the things, and I know you know this, we talk about here is being number one in everything we do. And a big part of that's part of our mission statement, being a champion in everything we do. The reason we do that is because we are so competitive in the nature of our business. But that also means we need to be number one in customer service, fan experience, everything, every touch point we have with a fan, we strive to be number one in it. And when you do it, you can't be number one unless you listen. And so we really try to listen. And we really try to act on the information that's given to us. So it begins there.
Listeners, can you understand why I love Dennis Lauscha as a leader? I mean, he's speaking my language, right? Because the listeners know that I truly believe that the key in leadership is first, just listen. You're going to get all the information you need to succeed if you just stop talking for a second and lean in and listen. Yeah. So many leaders, and I think I used to be one of those leaders too, right? You think that it's your job. You've reached this level that it's your job just to talk and share your expertise. And yet then at some point you just need to listen.
No, if you truly are going to be about continuous improvement, if you truly are going to be about Kaizen, the old Japanese principle, which,
right. Continuous
improvement. I learned it while I was getting my MBA at Loyola. If you really believe in those things, you have to listen. That's why in board meetings that I have, in meetings I have with our staff, I really make sure that everyone who is in that room says something before we dismiss the room. We have to hear from everyone. If we're going to invest so much in our staff, if we're going to develop our staff, if you're going to have confidence in that staff, the worst thing you could do is not listen, right? That's, in fact, I would say, if I have one complaint, sometimes it's, trying to get people to say what they believe. Don't be afraid to tell me as a leader, whether it's good, bad, whatever it is, just tell me and we'll deal with it. Same with fans. I mean, obviously you hear it when we, have wins and losses, but look, I don't care what it is. If we're out of ketchup and mayonnaise at the concession stand and that's an issue, I want to hear about it. And so, you have to go, you have to listen, you have to talk to the folks that are on the front lines. And if you're not doing that, then you're fooling yourself as being a leader or a manager.
So that's easier said than done. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you why. In my leadership class last week, I asked them, I said, y'all, I'm so excited I get to interview Dennis Lauscha on Monday. Mm-hmm. I said, what if you had an internship and you were at the front lines and you were in charge of being not in charge, but being a part of focus groups. And so you knew how the fans felt. And Dennis said, you know what? I would love to have some of the interns in my office come and have lunch with me. What are you hearing from the fans? I said, would you tell Dennis all the bad news that you're hearing? And they said, nope.
No, I know. That's one of the big issues. So I try to change it a little bit too. So look, I always say, if you're going to come in and you give me bad news, I mean, I will deal with it, good news, bad news. But if you come in with a problem, at least maybe, and I'm not really expecting an intern to have all the solutions, but also come in with a solution too. Say, hey, we're having this problem, whatever XYZ is. I want to let you know, this is my thought. And whenever someone comes in my office with a problem, and they offer a solution, I don't care how ridiculous the solution is, my appreciation for that employee goes up tenfold, because at least they're thinking it through. At least they're trying. At least all the reasons why we recruited this person, all the reasons why we developed this person, at least the person is coming to us and trying to be a team player. One of the things that Joe Dumars, our basketball GM, often says, are you compliant or are you committed? And when a person comes in and says, this is a problem and this is a possible solution, that's showing me you're committed. You're committed to pulling the organization in the right direction. And that right direction is towards a championship, or to be a number one, or to be a number one at fan experience. So, I like to say over and over, my door's wide open, please, come see me. I know they don't. So what a leader has to do is really go out and touch the employee as well, touch the player. I mean, a lot of players don't usually want to talk to the president, but I think the older I get in my career, the more confidence I had to recognize that I have to get out there and I have to talk to these frontline folks. And it's really on me as a leader, more so than your intern, to come see. I should not be ashamed or bashful or have any reservations about talking to any employee in our organization. I can see the intern having those reservations. So it's up to me as a leader to go do that.
Thank you so much, because you and I have had conversations. We've deconstructed of the Gen Z, and how are you going to attract top talent, and they are desiring different things.
Well, that kind of, you're right. Let me just start. You're absolutely right, but I don't get caught up at all in this discussion of Gen X, Gen Z, and again, I listen to it, I understand it, I hear what folks are saying, but the funny thing about it is, I hear complaints, oh, this generation is this generation is what we want. This generation is a group of folks who are coming to us and asking why. And if I'm not a good manager, first of all, I should be explaining why on the front end. If you're a good manager, you want them to understand why we're doing the things that we're doing. You don't want robots. You want folks that care about the mission. You want folks that really want to accomplish. You want folks that that really want to be successful. And if you're a manager, you have to let your employees know that. And it's so easy. I mean, one of the things that really frustrates me in management is we do such a great job of recruiting. We do a good job of developing. But what we have to do is also put those employees in a position to succeed. We would never put a quarterback in a position to be a linebacker. We never put a linebacker in a position to be a quarterback. We have to do the same types of things. When I have senior management come to me and say, this employee is not performing the way he or she should be performing. The question often is why? And I oftentimes turn to the manager and say, why is it your fault? Are you clearly articulating what the expectations are? Are you clearly articulating what is that employee supposed to do, and what's a win for whatever what's the accomplishment of that task, or whatever it is? Are you clearly doing that? And if they're not doing it, are you clearly telling them the reasons why they're failing at their task? Because I think so many managers, so many people don't want confrontation. And I get it. I don't want confrontation too. I want the world to be happy and peaceful, but you have to, if you're going to be a good manager, you have to, in a very respectful way, explain to that employee why or why not they're not doing a good job. And unless you're willing to do that, you're not going to be a successful manager.
Oh, absolutely. And so, as you know, I just wrote a new book, The Seismic Shift in You, and one of the chapters is about just that you, as the manager, have to have those delicate conversations, those necessary conversations. In addition, one of the chapters is what you talked about earlier, Dennis, is on shifting your calendar. That if you say that your people are the most important asset, then show me your calendar and make sure that you're rounding and having lunch with the interns and doing those things that represent what your values are. Because what I'm seeing is so many high-level leaders like you that I coach are telling me my calendar doesn't align with my values and my priorities, and they feel like the calendar owns them rather than them owning their calendar. So if I looked at your calendar today, what would it show me?
I'd like to think I'm doing it absolutely correctly, but I can tell you my calendar owns me a little bit too much. And I work for that not to happen. I really do. And the real, I think one of the things, I know you work with a lot of my friends as well, a lot of leaders in our community. I think one of the things that's really tough on leaders sometimes is you're trying to do too much. You really are. I mean, you're trying to change the world. You're trying to change your community. You're trying to make sure you're sitting down and having lunch with the intern. And then on the other side of this, you have to balance your work life a little bit, right? I mean, at least that's what I'm told. But no, you have to balance your work and life experiences.
You have kids. You have a wife.
We have a wife.
You have friends.
And in professional sports, one of the things particularly that, a lot of people don't talk about, and again, I'm leave my family out of it, is the stress that this job can put on a person's family too, whether that the fact that they're not home for 7 days a week, or if the team's not performing well, all of a sudden, their third grader being accused that your dad's not doing a good job, even though your dad may, work in the marketing department, has nothing to do with the football team. But that's also outside pressure that makes it difficult on our leaders as well. And so I think, you have to be really balanced. You really have to understand what your goals are. You have to understand what your limitations are. And again, it's part of the development. It's part of management training. Again, it goes back to, we develop these folks, particularly managers. We have to develop them in a way so they can truly be balanced. And so we work on that a lot.
Yeah. So I tell the leaders I work with, you have one life. You have one calendar.
Yep.
You have one day each day to make a difference. And how is that going to look? And are you going to have any regrets at the end of each day? And it is one opportunity. And I believe, tell me, that those days are over where it was, oh, that's my professional calendar. And then I have a personal calendar. And that's the professional me. And then I have a personal me. Man, it's one you, Dennis.
No. And that's why also, again, this doesn't work for everyone. And I know there's probably people that might be watching or hearing this and say, no, that would never work for me. But one of the beautiful things I think we have in our organization is because of so much time that we spend together, we really are like a family here. Yeah. And so that balancing of family, that balancing of friendships, I like to think that, we get that need fulfilled in one another here in the senior leadership of our organization. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do other things outside. By no means am I saying that, but at least we work in an organization where, I'm blessed. Everyone gets along really, really well. We've been working with each other for a very long time. So it's a joy to come to work. I know that's not the case, but if it's not the case, maybe, and you truly are a leader, you better start looking at that.
Oh, absolutely.
You need to make changes.
You have a very mission-driven staff, at least the leaders that I've had the opportunity to work with. So for those of you who know, I'm very honored to run the Benson Leadership Academy. And so I have a couple of questions there. So one, I've noticed incredibly mission-driven leaders, right? And you all did an incredible job of, you're only going to participate in the Leadership Academy if you've been nominated, vetted, because it's a big investment. So I have a couple of questions around that. What prompted you to invest and start a Benson Leadership Academy?
It goes back to development. I mean, it goes back to how much we're, well, it's a few things. I go back. If you look at our football side of the organization, our basketball side of the organization, the amount of money and time we spend in recruitment and attainment of talent is huge. Same thing with the development of that talent. If you're not developing that talent, then you're really doing yourself an injustice and you're really wasting your money on the recruiting side. That exactly can be said on the business side of this organization too. We have the benefit of being a high-profile company that really attracts some absolutely outstanding candidates. And so when we get those candidates here, it really would be an injustice to our organization, injustice to them if we don't develop those candidates as well. And that's one reason. The other big reason that I saw was just the different levels of management we have in the organization. Again, we have a very competitive organization. And it's really is kind of that middle management, upper middle management level of our organization are in an interesting place. I mentioned that we've had our senior management has really been here for a very long time. We haven't had much turnover. And so, they're, like you said, very mission driven, very competitive, those types of things. What's that next step for them? Where are they going to go? They really, I like to think we treat our employees very well. We pay them very well. There's a lot of other benefits. Ms. Benson is very gracious to all of our employees. So, I think you really don't want to leave. And you have a lot of New Orleanians and people that really have fallen in love with New Orleans and they don't want to leave. But what's that next step for them? They don't have the excitement that maybe a new employee has or a new manager has. And so how do we keep those? When we looked at the morale of the company, it was amazing to see that upper middle management group, really their morale was kind of down.
Yeah.
They didn't have the excitement of being new, and they had, God, how am I going to break through this next level? And it was really kind of being reflective in everything they did. And just that enthusiasm wasn't there. And so how do we bring that enthusiasm back to them? How do we make sure they understand what the mission is? How can we get them excited again about being an employee? A lot of times we talk about how we train our staff. It's that middle manager. How do you and look, that middle manager is really going to dictate how this organization is going to be. We have visions. Senior management has visions. Of course, we want to talk about performance and we put metrics and everything else. But that middle management's at the grind of every day, who is dealing with the frontline employees like we talked about, much more so than I am. How do we keep them enthused and excited? And that's a big reason why we said we have to start Benson Academy and make sure that middle tier is not being lost in the shuffle.
Yes, and you're a good friend and my good friend, Pete November. We were having a great conversation about leadership. You know how obsessed I am.
Yeah.
And we were trying to deconstruct, like, what are the characteristics that you all see right now that you think that's a leader that I want to keep, I want to attract, I want to invest in, like they have the qualities. And I want to hear what your qualities are. In that conversation with Pete, we said right now, a leader's got to be inspirational.
No question.
Absolutely. So when you saw that the middle management kind of was lacking in that energy is palpable,
It is.
Even on Zoom calls. And as you well know, there are times where people kind of tiptoe around and whisper, is he or she in a good mood, a bad mood? Because that affects everything. So if you have a mid-level manager that is not inspired, not motivated, and down, it is a bad egg.
Bad.
Exactly.
No.
That affects everybody.
What we're looking for in leaders, it's kind of interesting. I mean, a leader and a manager, a lot of times we say that's the same thing, but they have different characteristics. I mean, a leader, like, very much inspirational. I mean, is able to, get people fired up to be number one, like we talked about, able to share that vision and get people focused to go in the right, to take the right steps, professionally, personally, whatever it is. It's an art and a science, to be honest with you.
Yes,
I think
well said. Explain about it.
The manager is a little bit more being the science, right?
Yeah.
But the leader really is who's the person that has the science behind them and still has the art to lead other folks. And that's what we're trying to accomplish at Benson Academy. It's interesting. I mean, some people are naturally born with it. They have the art, but they have absolutely no management expertise at all. And so those folks have to be treated differently. They have to understand everything's black and white. Again, maybe left side, right side, brain, whatever it may be. But for the leaders, we have to make sure that it's not just about the art too. They have to have the science. And when you can bring those two things together, that's when you have a really special employee. And when you have someone that we've accomplished what we're trying to do from a development standpoint. And at that point, either there's going to be space for them in the organization, either with us. Well, another thing we try to do is not just in the Saints and Pelicans. We have a whole family of different organizations. So we very much try to say, all right, your next step may not be with the Saints and Pelicans, but there's a good shot it may be, with our property real estate company, or it could be with our venture fund, or it could be with our real estate venture fund, or our car dealership. So whatever it may be, stay in the family. We've developed you. We really like you. We want you to be here. we would really like you to stay, but we understand if you want to go somewhere else. And then within the family, we'll help you as much as we can. And then, in the event the answer is no, I really want to move on, we go really out of our way to make sure that we can find a landing spot for someone like that. And, I think part of our recruiting process is making that promise that if you do come through this organization and you are a high performer or you're a good performer, you don't have to be a good performer, we will help you in your career. And, it's really paid dividends for us. It's helped us on the recruiting side. It's also helped us on the talent acquisition side because everyone hears what we try to do. So, they send folks our way. And then a lot of times it's, boomerang. People leave, realize what they have or don't have, where they went, and want to come back. And so now you have a really committed employee, a really dedicated person when we do that. So really part of management, part of leadership is another word we use, which is trust, right? We talk about, that big funny thing that we talk about fan loyalty, right? We can want our fans to be loyal to both of our teams, but it also starts with us being loyal to them. Same with our employees as well. We want our employees to be loyal with us, but also means we have to be very loyal and there has to be that trust between the employee, leadership, management, in the organization. And so we really strive on that front too.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So a little shout out to a man that's a leader who's in this room right now. He's a little behind the scenes and his name is Lane.
Yeah.
Lane is a fantastic leader. And when you think about his positivity, right? So baseline is you got to be smart, you got to be dedicated and all this. What I think elevates a leader is that extra something. And in his case, he's positive, he's inspiring. You want to be around somebody like Lane. And when you see these leaders and you sign off, okay, we want them to go through the Benson Leadership Academy because we believe they have the it factor. What is the it factor to you?
I mean, it's multiple it factors. Have to be. It really, it's it goes back to a commitment to the organization, a commitment to improving the organization, a commitment to improving themselves. It's really seeing in them that dedication and desire to move forward, to put the organization. We have this saying around here. We talk a lot of. It's amazing how much successful we can have if no one cares who gets the credit. It's those type of selfless people in our organization who's not asking when can I go home. It's how can we be better. Y'all times you hear, I get paid to do a job. I don't get paid to be at work. That's not what we want. People who want to be here, who are all in, and it's reflective. And I could mention Lane. Lane, most people knew Lane as the photographer, right? But he did so much more. I mean, he is probably one of our most dedicated employees. He's there whenever you need him. He's unbelievable reliable. He's not afraid to offer his opinion. He's all the things we want an employee. And so, that's a person that, would get nominated to be, in our leadership academy. And we also want to pay a lot of attention to that. We're not leaving any group behind. One of the big things we do in recruiting here, and particularly from our DEI perspective, is, we really are pushing to make sure that we're not just falling in these buckets the way we've fallen into them so many times, only gone to this university or that university. A big question for us, we've had here is, if you're going to sell tickets and you're going to make outbound phone calls all day, which is a very difficult job. And I mean this in total respect because I love all the folks that do that, but do we really need a 4-year degree to do that? Can you be a high school graduate? Can you be a 2-year graduate from a community college? Can you have been a military, educated through the military? And how we don't care how you get here, but once you get here, we need you to be successful. And so on the Benson Academy, we may also need to look at those folks as well and say, all right, we need to make sure, they may not have had the formal management training, but they came up a different way and they're very successful. So how can we support that employee as well? And so, we recognize that not everyone here is coming from, the background that we we aspire or would want for them to eventually be. It's going to take a lot of education. It's going to take a lot of support. It's going to take a lot of putting your arm around. It's going to take a lot of mentoring. And if we're not doing those types of things, then again, we're fooling ourselves and we're setting ourselves up to fail.
You are so right. So one of the things that our listeners love hearing, and I'd love to end with this, Dennis, is connection. You really can't be good at connection with others unless you're really connected with yourself. You know who you are. You're real. You're authentic. That's what builds trust, right? And so tell us about your journey. How in the world did you get to the top of the top of the top?
Look, I was very, very lucky. It's funny. You mentioned Pete November earlier. I wanted to grow up and be like Pete. I graduated from college with a healthcare management degree, and I thought I was going to work in a hospital, and that's really the path.
I did not know that.
That was the path that I saw for myself. And
you grew up here. So
grew up here.
Yeah, New Orleanian.
Yeah, so I grew up here in New Orleans. Came back. I went to University of Alabama, healthcare management major. Came back here. Went to work for a hospital. And realizing that I need to get a graduate degree, or MBA. That's what they said. If you're going to make it, you have to get an MBA.
And where did you get your MBA?
I went to Loyola to get my MBA, and it was truly a remarkable experience. I really, who I am today, really from a business side, started at Loyola, and so I'm very proud and very honored to have gone to school there. And really what changed my life was being at Loyola when I wasn't very good at least I didn't think I was very good at accounting. I was like, I like management. I had a management degree, had a minor in finance. And when I went to get my MBA, you had to pick a subject. So I picked marketing. So the one I stayed away from was really accounting. And
did not know that either because he's an accountant by trade.
So thanks to one of the most inspirational teachers I've ever had.
Who was it? Who was it?
Don't put me on the spot like that.
It was just somebody. I bet you. Well, I'll find out.
No, I need to find out. In fact, I was going to ask for my transcript to find out because
great.
I need to go find this person and thank them and make a donation in their name.
I probably knew him or her. It's a her.
Yeah, it was an accounting teacher. And she said to me,
Cecily Rayburn, I bet. Anyhow, we'll find out.
I really feel bad I don't know her name.
We're gonna find it out.
Yeah. And she was a remarkable professor. And she said something. She said, Dennis, you're doing really well in accounting. She said, you're getting your MBA. You probably only have a few hours left to sit for the CPA. They're going to be changing the law here pretty soon on how many hours you need for the CPA. You're actually going to be okay. But, if you want to think about,
And she's why you became an accountant?
She's the reason why I became an accountant.
I did not know that.
And so I graduated in December. And really, it was my last class I had to take because I literally put accounting off to the very, very end.
And you listened to her and you sat for the accounting.
And so I needed to pick up a couple classes. So I did that. And my plan was if I didn't like accounting, I was going to go to law school.
Oh, my goodness.
So I did the accounting thing. And before law school started, I was recruited by a number of accounting firms to go to work there. So I went to work for Arthur Andersen. At the time, it was the biggest accounting firm in the world. They were the major player in New Orleans. They had all the big clients. I was very impressed. They spent a tremendous amount of money in training.
Correct.
And management training. And so I always thought that's what I wanted to be. It was a partner in an accounting firm. At that point, the moment I got into it, I just felt deeply in love with the whole profession, which was so, funny considering I had stayed away from it, but really, really enjoyed it. But what a lot of folks don't know, my first day on the job, my first client that I was sent to was the New Orleans Saints. And
your first client was Tom Benson.
New staff, and it was it was an audit of the brand new CBA, collective bargaining agreement, the salary cap. And so it was the salary cap had occurred actually 2 years prior. There was a salary cap audit the first year that really throughout the league really didn't go anywhere because it was so new. So really it was the first full year of a salary cap audit, and that's what I was on. So I became. It's kind of funny, the salary cap and the CBA is a different form of accounting. So, GAAP and tax and CBA, different rules and regulations. And the funny thing about it is I think at the time, and looking back how blessed I am, I think at the time, really no one wanted that job because they didn't want to have to go and learn a whole new form of accounting. And so they kind of like throw it to the new staff. And
you said, okay.
I said, I didn't know. I wanted a paycheck. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And anyway, the CFO at the time was a gentleman named Bruce Broussard, who was the CFO here. And he was a remarkable man. And I really, he was a mentor to me, and really my whole career, I can say he was another person who I was very blessed with. And he was a CFO here, and he and I really got to work very closely for about 4 years. And that's how many years I was on this job. And he was diagnosed horribly with Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh, gosh.
It was horrible. And anyway, I got a phone call one day and said, hey, do you want to interview for the Saints job? And at the time I was only like 28 years old. And I was like, I'll interview. But actually I said, no, I'm not interested in interviewing, because I put so much time and effort into learning CBA and learning and being on the regular Saints audit and everything else. If I interviewed, I was worried about independence, and I would never get the job, and then I would roll off the job, and I wouldn't be able to get back on the Saints audit. And so I said, I don't know. And I was literally at training in Arizona. I was at the Hyatt in Arizona. And back then it was payphones. We didn't have cell phones, or we had them, but I used a payphone for whatever reason. And I remember having the conversation saying, I don't think I'm going to do it. And I flew back from Phoenix all the way to New Orleans. And the whole way I thought about how I should, interview for the job.
So you listened to your gut.
So I landed. As soon as I landed, I went straight to the first payphone and said, hey, if it's not too late, I've changed my mind. I think I want to interview for the job. And they were gracious enough to understand why I'd changed my mind.
You explained your why.
I explained my why, yeah. And anyway, I got the job. And so I went through
at age 28.
28, a pretty thorough round of interviews, which is appropriate for a CFO at 28. And my last interview was with Tom Benson, and he was,
who was the owner? He
was the owner, and an accountant also by trade, Loyola graduate by trade, and so we really started to hit it off. And so I think he saw a little bit of himself in me, and I saw a lot of myself in him, and that's kind of how it went forward. And I was CFO for, I guess, this was 98 to 2012. And in 2012, I was named president when we acquired the Pelicans. And so
when they went from the Hornets to the Pelicans.
Well, yeah, we actually changed the name, so it was still the Hornets.
So you acquired the Hornets and then changed the name, thankfully, to the Pelicans. Makes much more sense. Let's be honest. You listen to your customers.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when Tom Benson died in 2014,
No, I think it's 17, right? Or gosh, it may have been a little bit
so when
later
he died, then you took on much more responsibility.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I was pretty involved with him at the same time. I wouldn't say much in my, as president. I mean, he was, as Miss Benson is, very hands-on, just delightful to work with. And, the one thing I say, I mean, with both Mr. and Mrs. Benson, they're obviously, their reputation is very community-driven, but they're also very business-driven as well. And I think, as a business leader, you love being a part of that. Mrs. Benson is very aggressive when it comes to talked about continuous improvement. When we talk about how can we be better as an organization, how can we be better in the community, how can we continue to invest, she sees it in many ways. Every time we invest in the community, we're investing in jobs or helping the community in some other way. We talk a lot about the double and triple bottom line that we do when we invest in the community from a business standpoint, not just a charitable standpoint. And so
what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if we invest in, part of the reason why Benson Capital, our venture fund was started, one of the big reasons why it was started, it actually started trying to bring innovation into the organization. And
because I think about it, what it's doing for the city and investing in startups in the city.
Yeah. Well, that's how we eventually sold it to ourselves to do it. But we originally were trying to bring innovation into the organization. And the question is, how can we do that? Because we ask so much from all of our people about how we can do more, how they can bring new thoughts, new ideas. Again, particularly in our industry where we're trying to get that competitive edge, whatever that competitive edge, we're trying to get that. And again, whether it's on the business side or whether it's on the football side or basketball side. And so, all right, I want to make an organization as leader that is innovative, that really have this sense of entrepreneurism. And how can I get that out of our employees? And so, for a year or two, we had all these great programs here and trying to do it. And at the end of the day, we have great employees, but it wasn't getting to the point that I wanted to with regards to innovation. And so we started saying, all right, we might need to go outside. We might need some help from outside on this one. And so we called up Idea Village and talked to Tulane, talked to Loyola, talked to UNO, talked about to all the entrepreneurs in their area, and started saying, we have this idea. And then eventually it kind of morphed into the venture fund that you have today. But that's how it all kind of started. Started with trying to bring innovation, and Miss Benson being super supportive of trying to bring that innovation into our organization. And then once we started talking, we said, we have a lot of assets, we have a lot of connections, we have a lot of relationships across the region. Wouldn't this be great for the city if we were able to do these things? Yes,
the answer is yes.
Yes. Wouldn't this be great if we could bring these companies to New Orleans? Wouldn't it be great if we could bring these companies to the region? Wouldn't it be great if we could support these, companies that are across the region and really start to build them up and invest in them when they're being not viewed, I don't want to use the word neglected, but they're not being seen by, Silicon Valley bankers or New York bankers. I mean, really from Houston to Dallas to Atlanta, there really is this gigantic void of capital. And so how can we bring this capital to these entrepreneurs? And we were able to do that. And it's been remarkable. But part of that was the double, triple bottom line. It can't just be about making money. It has to be more than that.
I wasn't sure what that referred to, the double, triple bottom line.
It has to be, is it creating jobs? Is it, what is it attracting other vendors to the market? Those types of things. Are those organizations giving back? Is it supporting the universities? What can it do? One of the things for Loyola, Tulane, and UNO, all of our Xavier, Dillard, one of the disadvantages we have is not having the businesses to support these universities. So that we want these great kids that are coming out of college who are so smart to stay in our backyards, but if we don't have the jobs to support them, so how can we get those jobs to support them? We really are a disadvantage if we can't do that, particularly looking at Dallas or Houston or Atlanta, wherever it may be. And so we have to do that. And as much as we can do that, then again, it's another hit to the bottom line, positive hit to the bottom line. So those are the types of things that we're doing.
I love that. And my final question, and this is going to be beneficial to all the listeners. It doesn't matter if you're in my leadership class and you're out there as a brand new graduate trying to get a job, or in the MBA program trying to get a job, or a mid-level manager who's working for another company and they look at the Saints and the Pelicans and this organization is something that they want to be a part of. What advice do you have for them?
It's tough. First of all, I'd say, you sure you want to do it? Because it is, it goes back to, it's a commitment. Mm-hmm. It's not a compliance job. I often say it is, it's not an occupation, it's a vocation, and so you really have to be willing to give it all. And if you're willing to do that, then we'd love to have you. And then once you're here, I like to think it's totally up to you. It really is totally up to you. What do you want? One of the beauties I love about our organization is that I can tell you at least 2 general managers in the National Football League start here in our ticket office, our marketing department.
Seriously?
Yeah. So, if you want it, you get in the door, you become a great employee, you get recognized. Again, it goes back to, whether you want to do it here or do it somewhere else, we'll support you. There was the folks that I mentioned, he started in a ticket office and he asked if he could help out on the football side and volunteer. And there really is no such thing as volunteer. We paid for him to help out on the football side. And then, he continued to move up, and then became the general manager of the Chicago Bears. So, it's those types of things. Omar Khan, who's the the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He got his start here.
We need to tell more of those stories.
Terry
I had no
Fontenot,
idea.
who's right now the general manager of the Atlanta Falcons, started here. Mike Tannenbaum, who you see on television, was an intern here. So, and he was also the general manager of the New York Jets. So we've had a lot of people that have come through our organization that have had and found success. And it's a good track record. It's awesome. And we love it.
Well, that's a reflection of the environment that you've built.
We like to think so.
And your leadership. Dennis, thank you so
thank
much.
you.
I love talking with you. I feel like I could talk with you all day and just pick your brain. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And have a beautiful day. Thank you so much to Loyola University New Orleans for your generous sponsorship. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Seismic Shift podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for joining us on the Seismic Shift. And before you go, can I ask one favor of you? Do you mind sharing today's episode with a leader you know? The power of this conversation is found in your using it and sharing it to create real connection in your life. Lastly, I'd like to thank Loyola University New Orleans for helping bring this content to life.